Quality score is Google's North Star to determine how relevant you are for any particular search. When I audit an account and look at something that's gone awry, it's one of the first things I look at. Typically, if your search campaigns aren't seeing performance, it is because your quality scores are low. And sometimes it'll be a low quality score despite the fact that you're hyper relevant for the term you're targeting. The way that quality scores are calculated are through a combination of your ad copy relevance, your expected CTR, so how good you are at convincing someone to click. So you can't just be relevant, you also have to be convincing, and as well the landing page experience, which takes into account not only the copy and relevancy on the page, but the performance of the page as well. So maybe you've got a super relevant site, but it takes 5-10 seconds to load, people are bouncing, that will be taken into account within your quality scores.
It's all killer, no filler. I'm Eric, and this is the DTC Podcast, and today I am here with Dougie, Pilothouse's Google lead. Welcome to the DTC Podcast. Dougie, can you tell us what we're talking about today?
Yeah, we're chatting through just some things I've encountered through recent audits where just generally there's a bit of a misconception of how to approach search campaigns, and I think people just aren't thinking about the high level enough in that front, and as well that trickles all the way down into what's actually being executed on within the granular search term data as well. So just think people aren't thinking thoughtfully enough about how they're putting together their search campaigns.
Strategically enough as well, right? I think that's we're talking today about sort of a framework that you should be of how you should be thinking about your Google ads. I might use the word rubric. It feels like a bit of a rubric for how to think about your Google ads.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Okay, well, start us off. What's maybe the number one way that you see people aren't thinking about their ads, and how should they think about them?
Yeah, so I think it's important to frame maybe I'd like to put things into tiers on the search side of things. So my example would be, say we're a company selling lemons. I would say that there are generally, broadly, 3 tiers of searches that we would generally try and go after for lemons. And generally we try and start with what's most specific to us first. We don't want to just go after lemons broadly off the get-go, right? Because there could be a massive amount of intent for different kinds of lemons. They want lemons from Zimbabwe, or they want organic lemons, or they want lemons that are a certain strain, or what have you, right? So you want to speak with specificity to the product you offer first, because if you can't sell your product to a person searching exactly for what you search for, you're going to have a real struggle to sell anything higher up the funnel, right? So
you have bigger problems.
Exactly. So if we're selling lemons, for example, I would start off by being very specific about the kind of lemons we're selling, right? Are we selling organic sugar-free lemons, for example, or a specific strain? Let's go very specific about the lemons we're selling. That way we're putting ourselves in front of the people that are most relevant. And then from there, if we can get performance from that, which you would expect to be able to, or else, again, you have a broader marketing problem, then we can start to look to expand and move up the funnel. So I would say the tier 1, the most relevant people are the people that have searched for organic sugar-free lemons, and you offer organic sugar-free lemons, right? From there, the second tier, I would say, are people who are broadly just looking for lemons. So because that could have a variety of different levels of intent behind it, again, they could be looking for Zimbabwe lemons from a specific city or whatever, or they can be looking for lemons from the grocery store, or they're trying to buy lemons in bulk. There's a ton of different levels of intent and ideas behind that specific search. So when you're targeting those particular users, you might want to speak to the specifics of your lemon in a different way, right? So try and have a broader appeal to lemons, or explain why. Okay, you actually want organic lemons or sugar-free lemons, and here's that. That's what we offer, right? So that would be the second tier, where you're kind of a step broader. And even beyond that, I would say that there's a third tier, and those are for people looking for maybe an alternative solution in the space. So in this particular example, someone looking for limes, right? Now you're trying to convince someone, okay, you're after a lime. You actually don't want a lime, you want a lemon, and here's why, right? So answering questions people would have regarding the specific product you offer, but doing it in different tiers along the way. When you're targeting people who actively know exactly what you offer and you're putting yourself in front of them, you want to say you're the most organic lemons and the most sugar-free lemons if they're searching for organic sugar-free lemons. If you're targeting someone who's just searching broadly for lemons, you have to convince that person that, hey, you actually want organic and sugar-free lemons, here's why. And then if you're targeting someone looking for limes, you want to say, you don't want limes at all, you want lemons, and here's why, right? So those are kind of the general high level thought processes that I don't see enough people thinking about when they're going about their targeting and their ad copy and their alignment from ad copy to landing page as well.
And what do you see instead? You just see sort of like more of a general, a whole bunch of keywords that aren't maybe organized or prioritized. They all go to the same landing page. Like, what do you see?
Yeah, great question. So oftentimes we'll either see someone starting off way too broad. They'll go just for lemons off the bat. They're like, hey, look, there's a ton of search volumes for lemons, not as much for organic sugar-free lemons. I'm going to go after what has the most volume behind it, but that's in error. If you can't sell what more specifically is relevant to your product, you're not going to be able to convince the broader population to buy your product, right? So generally, I see people either going too broad. I see people will dump a lot of similar search terms into the exact same bucket, right? So if you're maybe targeting organic lemons as an example, and you're also targeting sugar-free lemons, and you're also targeting lemons from Zimbabwe, those have different modifiers behind them, and the people searching that have different expectations of what they're after and different priorities with the product that they're looking to purchase, right? If you're targeting someone looking for Zimbabwean lemons, you want to speak more to that element in your copy and on your page. You don't want to have an ad copy and a page that speaks more to the organic and sugar-free elements of your lemon, right? So I see a ton of that just kind of bucketing everything under one umbrella, and I see a lot of people going too broad generally.
Love that. I think I would add for advanced users, there might even be one that you want to establish that's even before the direct keywords, which would be like, how do I create more sourness in my life? Sourness, the new health craze, it's just sort of like the thing that's happening in culture that your product relates to in a way. You could, if sourness became a new health craze, you'd posit lemons as the alternative to that. You'd explore the sourness phenomenon kind of thing. You'd have SEO copy and potentially ads around that going up funnel further, even than your product specifically.
Yeah, 100%. Like you don't have to just stop at the alternative example, right? You can target people like trying to uncover a problem, or maybe they don't even know they have the problem yet. Like in your specific example, these are just the three probably most relevant tiers, but you can absolutely kind of take that up and up and up until you've kind of reached the summit of relevancy towards your product.
And so when you say, and so obviously you're creating relevancy for the user, which is always Google's biggest priority. I remember, it's funny, I was way back in the day when I was slinging e-cards on Google, we would make customized pages. We had to make customized pages, both for the user's conversion, but also for the quality score specifically. And so update me on how relevancy, when you build it throughout your whole funnel, including your landing pages, impacts quality score at this point.
Yeah, so quality score is Google's North Star to determine how relevant you are for any particular search, right? And I don't think enough people look at quality scores in general. When I audit an account or hop in and look at something that's gone awry, it's one of the first things I look at within search campaigns. Typically, if your search campaigns aren't seeing performance, it is because your quality scores are low. And sometimes it'll be a low quality score despite the fact that you're hyper relevant for the term you're targeting. And the way that quality scores are calculated are through a combination of your ad copy relevance, your expected CTR, so how good you are at convincing someone to click. So you can't just be relevant, you also have to be convincing. Can be difficult when you've only got 30 character headlines to deal with on Google, but we do our best. And as well, the landing page experience, which takes into account not only the copy and relevancy on the page, but the performance of the page as well. So maybe you've got a super relevant site, but it takes 5-10 seconds to load. People are bouncing, right? That will be taken into account within your quality scores.
So this is something you see, people come in and you look at it, you look under the hood and you're like, Google doesn't think you're that relevant. What's the rehab for that? Is it really just all about going back to categorizing, meeting users where they are, but building up custom landers? How do you go about fixing that when you're not relevant?
Yeah, on Google, it starts with the search intent. So making sure that we are actually targeting a relevant search to us, right? Again, going back to the tiers that we've already established. If we are targeting something that we have high intent for, we're highly relevant for, then we'll move on to the next step, which is ad copy. So we look at our ad copy. Are we relevant for the particular search that we're offering? Are we speaking to that specific search? I see a lot of people copy paste their ads across all their different campaigns and said, oh, away we go. And it doesn't speak with specificity to that particular term, right? We want to be engaging with the modifiers that they're adding to the lemon search, for example. We want to talk about how organic our lemons are if we're targeting organic lemon searches, right? And then from there, if we're relevant, we also have to make sure that our ad copy is as enticing as possible. But from there, we then look at the landing page experience. And I wouldn't necessarily say that you have to launch a completely new landing page, but what really helps is to ask yourself the kinds of questions that maybe your searcher would be asking about organic lemons. Maybe there's someone who doesn't know much about organic lemons. You've got to explain that a little bit more on your landing page. What types of questions would people ask? I don't know off the top of my head, but
why do I need lemons in my life?
Exactly.
Would be my first question.
Like always trying to unpack the what, the why, the how, the who. That will help answer some of these questions. And doing so on your landing page won't only help your paid side of things, it'll help your organic side. So really making sure that you are in the heads of someone searching for the terms that you're targeting and making sure that you're answering any questions that might come up from that particular level of intent.
Who do you think the best spokesperson would be for lemons? I got one idea.
I don't know. Who's your idea?
Don Lemon. I think he's free now. I think he's free. He's not too busy these days. So you could get Don Lemon to be the number one guy for lemons. That's my...
I thought you were going to... Yeah. Anyways, I thought we were going to crack a political joke there, we'll say.
Oh, no. We just stay away from politics on the DTC podcast at all times. That's within our rubric. Okay, so what's the third component that we have to discuss today that you see people going astray?
Yeah, so I think people just generally, even if they are, so you've gone through and you've thought about, okay, I'm targeting terms that are hyper relevant for me. I've got a good quality score. I'm targeting a good combination of ad relevance, and I've got strong copy, and my landing page speaks to these questions and speaks specifically to the term we're serving for. But at the end of the day, we're targeting a very broad match type. So we're just targeting lemons, broad match, and all of a sudden we're getting limes and irrelevant traffic, and we're maybe going and we're hitting oranges too, and like stuff that we just, we at our current point in the business, we want to segment that so that we can speak with specificity. I'm not saying don't implement broad match by any means, but I'm saying if you are going to go broad, you have to be conscious about the negative keyword implementation, the lists that you've got in place, and a bit of a filter system. So if you've got a particular ad group targeting just organic lemons, then you've got a broader campaign targeting lemons broadly, you might want to add organic as a broad negative to the broader lemon campaign, because when you're speaking to organic lemon searches, you want them to filter through the organic lemon ad group. The other problem that arises when you have too broad of targeting, so maybe you've got broad match here, broad match there, you're targeting broad match organic lemons and broad match sugar-free lemons, those are oftentimes going to hit the same traffic, and that's diluting your performance between the two campaigns as well. So that impacts not only learnings between the campaigns, so say you've got a target ROAS of 200 here and 100 here, all of a sudden this is booming, you lower this one, and all of a sudden this one starts booming, and now you're like, what the heck is going on, right? So it impacts your strategic decision making as well as the learnings for the campaign. So it distorts your view of performance, and it's also confusing to the algorithm when you have these exact same terms flowing to different ad groups, not to mention the fact that, again, we would run into problems with not sending the more relevant traffic to the most relevant ad group.
And so you're using negative keywords to keep those funnels clear.
Yeah, so it's not just, okay, we don't want to serve for oranges. It's, okay, I want my organic lemon searches to go to my organic lemon ad group. I don't want them to flow through my broad lemon ad group, because I've built that funnel out so that the ad copy, the landing page speaks more broadly to the lemon problem as a whole and less specifically to organic. I want organic searches to be spoken to specifically and sent to a landing page specifically for organic lemons, right? So it's not just, hey, I don't like these terms aren't relevant for me. It's, I want to send the user to the most relevant, through the most relevant path that I can. And that typically means adding some and thinking strategically about how we're placing different exclusions within our negative keywords as well.
I like that, because I think a lot of people think, or, the way I was thinking about, many years ago, I was thinking about negative keywords was mainly just the blunt instrument. Like, don't put cars that are lemons, or the U2 album that's a lemon, or
exactly,
or whatever. But actually to do it within your own campaign, blocking, just making sure that the customer gets routed in the most efficient way.
Yeah. And again, it impacts not just the relevance for that user and their user journey, but also how you are interpreting the data. Because again, you could split that 50-50. All of a sudden you're looking at your keywords, you're like, hey, organic lemons is doing really bad, but actually what's happening is just all your organic lemon traffic is filtering through the other less relevant ad group, right? So it distorts your strategic thinking and the learnings for the campaign, in addition to everything else in terms of trying to avoid irrelevant
score,
searches.
all of it. You're sandbagging yourself if you're not
Exactly.
if you're not dotting your T's and crossing your I's.
Yeah, campaign level, ad group level, like it can be a bit of a mind mess when you're you're trying to think through it and plan it if you've got a really extensive range of targeted terms. But it's really essential to make sure that you are sending your user, especially if you spend all the time to build the funnel, you're like, hey, I spent hours and hours and hours developing my ad copy, my landing page, so that I'm speaking so specifically to organic lemons. I'm the authority of organic lemons in the space. And then all your organic lemon traffic, because you're targeting broadly, is going through your broad campaign, which doesn't speak to all the benefits that you built out specifically for that user.
Amazing. I think this is a very valuable rubric for any user looking to re-strategize their Google ad account. But I always like to finish on things in the news. So I just Googled Google in the news. I hadn't seen this, but I see that Google has changed its mind about killing third-party tracking cookies. Have you caught this news story?
Yeah, so it came up pretty recently. I'm not necessarily surprised, because I think it was going to be pretty impactful for the platform. I'm curious to see where they go from here, but I would say it is generally a good thing for advertisers on Google that they aren't going down that route. I would just say I'm curious to see how they deal with, as we go forward, privacy concerns and the like, right? So that is going to be interesting to see how they navigate that. But in the short term, I would say it's a win for Google marketers.
So the sandbox didn't bear fruit. The sandbox didn't bear any crops. It was turned out to be just a sandbox.
Yeah, I think it was clear on the Google end that it was going to be a real struggle to maintain their current algorithm while deprecating those cookies, right? So they, especially with PMax, there's a large reliance on automation, and PMax does a ton of retargeting, right? That relies on cookies as well. So yeah, I think I'm not surprised, but I'm curious to see where they go from here.
Long live the cookie. Great to chat with you again, Dougie. I think we had someone reach out recently from one of our podcasts, and I think it was maybe an audit or something that you were describing. But what you're doing these audits all the time. If someone is in our audience and wants to have an audit by the legendary Dougie, just reach out and we can help apply our rubric to your campaigns.
Yeah, always love chatting Google. So happy to chat with brands big and small. I just enjoy kind of giving people this information, helping them grow, whether they partner with our Pilothouse team or not. I think it's just important that people have this information and know what they're doing with their business.
And that's what we're doing here on the DTC Podcast. Another classic episode. We're gonna hit episode 500 this year, which I was just mentioning on the last All Killer No Filler. So can't wait to see who that is, who lucky number 500 is. It's gonna be a big one.
Sweet, congrats.
All right, thanks, Dougie. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're not getting the D2C newsletter, you can subscribe for free at directtoconsumer.co. And if you want to learn more about Pilothouse's all-killer, no-filler services, take off to pilothouse.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.